Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask Ron. I asked for some questions, got a whole bunch quickly, appreciate it. First batch from Bully God. Bully God, I told to stop asking questions because he asked so many good ones I wanted to hear from the rest of the class. But I do appreciate you, Bully God, just so you know. First group of questions, actually it's one. Bully God says, you answered previously about paying a prep coach more so for the chemical guidance. Yet you always guided yourself with the use of gear. Do you really trust someone else with their advice? And what if the amount seems way higher than you're used to? Is that money well spent? If I had a coach and they told me to use an amount that I was not comfortable with using, and I think I have a fairly good idea in my mind of what I consider excessive, I wouldn't do it. Regardless if I was paying them and they said, this is what you should do, if it was an amount I was not comfortable with, I would not do it. You know, I'm 48, I have kids. My son's 18, just turned 18. My daughter will be 24 in a couple months. She's married. I want to see my kids grow up, have their own families, you know, all that good stuff. Because, you know, I lost my dad when I was 16. He never saw me get married. He never even saw me graduate high school. Never met my kids. Never saw me have any kind of career. So I definitely want my kids to have me around well into their adulthood, so I can watch them grow up and, you know, maneuver their way through life and be there to help if they need my help in any way. I want to help my kids, so I need to be here and alive to do that. As far as guiding myself in the past, I did, but it's fairly basic. I did not use growth hormone. I didn't use insulin. Didn't use T3. I could certainly do my own research and talk. There's people I can talk to guide myself. So in all likelihood, I would not hire a coach. I probably wouldn't. Just because for me, I don't think it would be worth it. You know, and also, of course, I want to turn pro, and just because I've been doing this so long, and it's been a lot of years, a lot of time, effort, sacrifice, it would just be a nice, almost like a diploma. Palumbo actually put it that way. I'm going to give him credit. I took that idea from him. He said it would be like a nice recognition, like, good job, here's your diploma. Which I know doesn't make sense. In the old days, it was the best, the very elite physiques turned pro, and it was a very special thing. It's not so special anymore because we have so many pros now. Like I was talking to Levroni yesterday. Said back when he turned pro, I could name pretty much every pro. At least, if I couldn't name them all off the top of my head, I was familiar with all of them, and that's not the case anymore. Now there's so many pros, turning pros at so many shows and so many different divisions. There's no way. I guarantee you nobody out there knows every pro in every division, even by name anymore. There's so many. But you know, I'm meandering. I would do research and I would ask a lot of questions. I still wouldn't go crazy because I know from experience and from the experience of many others that more gear, more drugs in general does not equal better results. There's a certain, you know, you have to realize this is mostly genetics. I do feel that, you know, once you're beyond the big shows and you're getting into masters divisions at other shows, a lot of times you can get a pro card without having the greatest genetics if you have enough muscle and enough crazy condition. So how much more muscle could I possibly have at this point? I've competed, my best look in the past few shows, and you know, I haven't competed since 2013, was between 201 205, which is barely a heavyweight. I know I would need to be deeper into that class. And weight doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. I'm well aware of that, trust me. But I know I would need to fill out. I would need to have a little more size and fullness. And adding certain things into the mix would help me achieve that. I don't want to make this all about, you know, my situation with gear and all that, because again, I'm not qualified to speak on that. We are going to have someone starting a show very soon on MD who's more qualified and will be speaking a lot more about that. Boston Lloyd. So you'll be hearing about that pretty soon. Next question, also from Bully God. When getting ready for a show, what type of diet typically works best for you? If you do have to go low carb, what do you consider low carb? Have you ever heard of fat loading? What are your thoughts on it? Also, when do you feel the need to refeed yourself? Not a cheat meal, just bumping up your carb sources. When you have a massive weight drop in a week, or just by how you feel overall and not how you look. All right, that was a bunch of questions. I'm going to try to take one. So when getting ready for the show, what type of diet typically works best for you? It's my own version of carb cycling, and it's based around when I feel my body needs the carbs. So training days, I have more carbs on training days with weights. When I say training days, I mean weight training. Less carbs on non-training days, and that works out pretty well for me. So I'm going a lot lower on carbs. So let's say on a day I train with weights, just to throw out a number, maybe I'm doing 300 grams, 400 grams of carbs a day. On a non-weight training day, I would do 100 grams of carbs roughly for the whole day, but I would increase my fats. So my meals would mostly be protein, a fatty protein source, maybe like red meat or chicken thighs or whole eggs, and I would have just vegetables with that. Or if I had a leaner protein source with for a meal, like cod or chicken breast, I would have maybe some nuts with that for the extra fat content. So my calories are stable from day to day. They don't vary much at all. The carbs do change based on when I feel they're going to be utilized. And even on the days that I do weight training, the majority of my carbs are before and after my workouts. As the day goes on, I don't feel they're needed. So I'll typically have 3 carb meals, my first 3 meals a day will have carbs in them, and after that it'll just be protein and vegetables, or protein with a little bit of fat. That works well for me, but that's me. I'm not saying this is what you should do or anybody else should do. What type of diet? You have to go low carb. So what do I consider low carb? I don't really go low carb. My body processes carbs well. I can get lean while I'm taking in 300-400 grams of carbs a day on weight training days. So I don't ever go zero carb. I feel like dog shit. I've never given keto a real chance. I'll say that right here and now. I've never done more than a few days without carbs. I just, I've been told, eventually your body adapts and you feel good. If I get in shape and do well on carbs, why would I change it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you can't get in shape while eating carbs, go do keto. That's great. But if your body does well with carbs, there's no reason in my mind why you should be taking them out just because you're on a contest diet. And a lot of people say, low carb, you're low carb. You don't have to go low carb. Some people keep their carbs very, very high because, they have faster metabolisms and their body handles carbs well. And, there are people that diet on, bigger guys that diet on 600-800 grams of carbs a day, really. Have I ever heard of fat loading? What are your thoughts on it? Yes, of course I've heard of it. I've been around forever. I'm not really sure when you're supposed to load and all that. Like I said, I feel good when I have some fats in my diet. I don't believe in no carbs or no fat. I believe the body needs all those in some amounts. So, like I said, I'll have days where the carbs are higher and days where the fats are higher. And both of them, I feel good on both days because I'm always having a little bit of carbs. Even on the days I'm having lower carbs, I'm still having carbs, in like one meal or 2 meals. I'm never going a day without carbs. For me, it's pointless. It doesn't make me look any better. I certainly don't feel any better, so I don't do it. When do I feel the need to refeed myself? If I'm getting ahead, if I'm dropping weight too fast, which, at my age, the last few shows, that really hasn't been an issue. My metabolism is definitely slowing down. I used to get in shape faster than I do now. So, I don't typically have the need for refeeds. If I really do feel like I'm flat, and that word is just so abused. Everyone feels they're flat. Flat really just means you're not as big as you'd like to be and full, but who is, Phil, Heath, and Rami, and maybe a few other people, and everyone else, we wish. So we don't have that much muscle, and we're not that full, so we're flat. Especially when you're dieting, you're going to feel flat because you're taking in less calories, you're doing more cardio. You want to feel full, just don't compete. Just eat plenty of carbs, drink plenty of water, get plenty of sodium. You'll be full. You'll never feel flat. So if you're really afraid of being flat and you hate it, just don't diet, don't compete, because that's part of getting in shape. Sorry. So yeah, I don't feel the need usually. But if I do feel like I'm dropping too fast, if I'm getting in shape too fast for whatever reason, maybe I did too much cardio because I was flipping out or something, yeah, then I would probably eat a little, bump up my carbs a little. It wouldn't be anything crazy. I wouldn't go out to a buffet or anything. I wouldn't feel the need to suddenly have 2,000 grams of carbs a day or anything ridiculous, because I know I don't need that. Okay, overlooked. Here's a great question. Did you know Matarazzo, DeMayo, or Cutler when they were coming up, and ever see them train? I didn't know any of them while I was still in Boston, so I left Boston in January of 1991 to go work and live in Los Angeles, and ended up staying there until fall of 2000. So I missed, the 90s was a really good time for New England bodybuilding, for Massachusetts, for Boston. We had a lot of great competitors coming out of the area. We had some great gyms. Unfortunately, I was not around. I was out in California, so I sort of missed Boston's big golden era of bodybuilding. Did I know these guys? So I'll take them one at a time. Matarazzo. I had never even heard of Mike Matarazzo, believe it or not. He trained, he lived out in Somerville. Like I said, he had only done a couple shows. He had done, I think, one NPC show. He had won the Gold's Classic in Boston. I want to say it was like 89 or something. And, I didn't go to NPC shows. And I started competing in 89, and I was competing in the ANBC, a natural bodybuilding organization. I was vaguely aware that there was something called the NPC, and they had shows. But as far as I was concerned, that was a different universe. Those guys were huge. They were on drugs, and that wasn't my world. I didn't go to the shows. I wasn't too familiar with the athletes. I had started buying the magazines in late 87, and so I started getting an idea who some of the amateurs were and everything. But Matarazzo, when I went out to California in January 91, I went to work for that show, American Muscle Magazine, on ESPN, and the producer of the show was a guy named Lou Zwick. Lou was a tremendous talent scout, one of the greatest talent scouts this industry has ever seen. Maybe the greatest, actually. Between him and Ed Connors, they pretty much discovered everybody, gave everybody their first break. So in January, either January or February, I went on a video shoot down in World Gym Venice, and Mike was there. They were shooting Mike. He was out in California living out. He had just gotten out there, I believe, and he was going to stay and compete in the 1991 USA Championships, where he actually ended up winning. He beat Flex Wheeler. But this was still off season. This was the first time I met Mike, and we talked. Like I said, we didn't really have any friends in common or anything, because I didn't know any of the NPC competitors, and I didn't go to any of the big bodybuilding gyms in the Boston area when I left. But by the time I had left, I still hadn't done any of that. But we hit it off because we were both from Boston. He was a cool guy. I liked Mike a lot. He had been on the show. He had been on American Muscle already. Lou had filmed him a previous time in Massachusetts, I believe, and put him on the American Muscle show, but I hadn't seen that particular episode. I would catch the show sporadically or set my VCR to tape it. It was on real late at night a lot of times. So I really didn't know who Mike was. But I did see Mike train a bunch of times. He trained hard, very strong guy. Very impressed with shoulders, shoulder width. His back was really wide. Didn't have the greatest back, unfortunately. Structurally, he had a long, long torso. Saw him train a few times. Cutler. Jay, I had never heard of until, again, I started working for Lou. And I want to say the first I ever heard of Jay was 1992 or so. We used to get pictures sent to us from all over the country. Other people that were basically talent scouts, gym owners, contest promoters. They would send videos and pictures to the office in Rosemead, California, to say, look at this guy. And DeMayo had already, Lou was well aware of DeMayo. Lou had actually had DeMayo on the show a couple times, contest coverage particularly, I know that. He had won like the Team Massachusetts back in like 1987 or something. I was familiar with the name Paul DeMayo Quadzilla, even though, like I said, I wasn't really aware of the NPC stars in the Boston area, and there were a bunch at that time in the late 80s through the early to mid 90s. It was a big, big time for Boston bodybuilding. But yeah, of course, I was aware of him. He was a freak. There were posters of him. He was in magazine ads. He was in the magazines. I didn't meet Paul for the first time until 91 or 92 out in California. It's weird. I met all these Boston guys out in California where I was living. I saw Paul train a couple times. He came up to the World Gym in Pasadena where I was a member. I think Lonnie Tieper brought him there to train, and he trained legs. And he had those striped Hot Skins shorts on. Tights. And I was just in awe of how big this guy's legs were. The quads, big hanging, vastus medialis teardrop. The sweep was crazy. His hamstrings had this big sweep on him. He had these massive calves. I didn't watch him train really too much, but I would catch glimpses here and there. Trained hard. I recall that he was squatting with like 225 or 275 or something, and I was waiting for him to load it up because, you know, we were all squatting more than that. But he didn't squat heavy. He didn't need to. He would do more reps or whatever and hack squats and this and that, and his legs just blew up, you know. It's kind of like everyone likes to rip on Phil Heath for not training heavier and doing all these compound movements because they feel he should, but, you know, he's the greatest bodybuilder in the world as far as the judges in Olympia say for 7 years in a row. So why should he be deadlifting and doing all these exercises, squats, barbell benches that you guys want him to do just to satisfy what? Because you do it in the gym? You know, he's not a power lifter, he's not a weight lifter, he's a bodybuilder, he's a great bodybuilder who's won 7 Olympias. I'm getting off track again. So Paul, I got to know Paul a little bit too. Paul was his own worst enemy. He was kind of a depressed guy, I felt like. He sort of had a chip on his shoulder. He felt like everyone was against him. Everything was against him. I kind of feel bad thinking about it because, you know, he ended up sliding into addiction and died of a heroin overdose. But, yeah, the potential that guy had. He only did a couple pro shows ever. He did the 96 Olympia, or 95 or 96? 96, right? Where he got a special invite, and then he did, I think, 1 or 2 Grand Prix shows right after. I believe Metrex sort of, at the time, was his sponsor, and they talked him, you know, they basically said, you got to do these shows because we need you to compete. And he wasn't really, his heart wasn't in it, his condition wasn't really there, and he didn't do that well. But Paul had so much potential. So back to Cutler. Cutler, like I said, I think the pictures of him came in around 92, and he had these black and white, again, the striped tights, where you saw these crazy thigh sweeps. So he was like 18 at the time. I think he had barely just started training. He was just blowing up so fast. I didn't meet Jay for the first. He'd been on Lou's show a couple times too. So in 93, especially, we did the Teen Nationals coverage where he won the heavies and Branch won the light heavies in the overall. So that's when I really became aware that this kid from the Worcester, Massachusetts area, Jay Cutler, was something special. Didn't meet Jay for the first time in person till the 95 Arnold Classic. He was sitting up near the front with Chris Aceto, and Lou had actually hooked him up with Chris Aceto to be his coach back in the day. So that's when I met Jay, and, you know, all I could remember at the time was, wow, this kid is just enormous. So 95, he would have been, you know, 21 years old or so, something like that. He was huge. He was already like 260, 270, pretty lean. He had like I believe he had like a you know, button-down short sleeve shirt on. He was just enormous, huge kid. Didn't see Jay train until much later on. I actually got to train with Jay one time, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We did back up at a gym in Woburn with Jose and Kevin English. It was all in the same workout. It was quite a day, quite a cool day. But yeah, they were the stars from the Boston area, and ironically, I didn't meet any of them in Boston. I met them all, you know, out of state, California, Ohio. Odd. Okay, the last group of questions comes from Michael Edwards, Dennis Wolf's biggest fan. Number 1, were you jealous of the amount of women Tito Raymond would get? I didn't really know Tito that well. I never hung out with him. You know, I knew him by face, and and he knew who I was, and I knew who he was, and he came out to compete in the Musclemania and stuff, so I knew him a little bit, but I never really got to know Tito. Still don't know him that well, just because I never got a chance to get to know him. I know Jose much better. We've trained together many times, hung out at shows and this and that, so I know Jose much better. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I was never jealous I didn't know Tito about a lot of girls, you know, because I didn't know Tito. Jose back in his single day, though. Okay, I'm going to say it right here. Yes, I was very jealous because Jose, talk about a chick magnet, and just talk about having game. Nobody had game like Jose had game. He's married now, so this is all in the past. This is past history. But, you know, A lot of people say women don't like short guys. Where none of these things applied to him. All the women loved him. He loved women. He had a great run as a single guy, and I'm sure he has. You know, now he's married. He can look back. He's got no regrets. So if I was envious of anybody, it would be Jose and how well he did with the fit girls of the world, but not Tito. Second question about Tito. Did you ever think of challenging Tito at MuscleMania Team U? Hell no. Tito would kick my ass. You know, those Raymonds, they all have insane genetics. Insane. I competed against Tito at one show. It was the 1990 ANBC Mr. Massachusetts in Natick, Massachusetts at the high school. So that was summer of 1990. I was still 20. I would turn 21 in a couple months. He is the same age. I believe his birthday is in August. I think he's like a month older than me. But we were still 20 years old at the time. And that show, for whatever reason, it had only teens and open men. They didn't. Some of the ANBC shows had a junior division, which I think was up to 22 years old at the time. This one did not. So because we weren't 19, we were 20, we were too old, we had to go in the open men. And our class had like 20 guys in it. It was the men's medium. It was a height, you know, they went by height in the ANBC. Tito, I didn't know who he was at the time. And I remember he took second out of these 20 guys to a guy named Carlos Silva, who was became a big WNBF pro. But Tito took second. I couldn't tell you where I placed. It was not in the top 10. It was probably, somewhere between 15th and 20th. I didn't know what I was doing back then. I really had no clue with the diet, and I was clueless. And I still had a lot of growing to do. But Tito was already looking like a stallion, and he took second in the men's class against guys who are much, much older. And I remember being so bummed when I found out he was only 20 as well. I was like, oh man, I thought this guy was 25. You know, he didn't, not that he looked old, but I was just, because of the way he was built, he was already had a tremendous physique at age 20. You know, Tito. I mean, like these Raymonds, they're something else. They train their asses off. They're strong as fuck, and they just have these insane genetics. So you get these crazy physiques. So yeah, I never thought of MuscleMania. I worked for the MuscleMania show, so I couldn't compete in it. Team U, no, I didn't do Team U till I was 2009. I think I was like 4 days away from turning 40 when I did my first Team U. So I did the open men, obviously. But no, I never thought of challenging Tito at all, ever, because he would have destroyed me. He was a far, far better bodybuilder than I could ever hope to be. He was completely drug-free. I could take every drug in the world and couldn't beat Tito. He's just got the structure, the shape, beautiful body, which, you know, you got to be born right. What supplements do you endorse? Gaspari. You know, I get Gaspari products. I love them. I use Plasmajet, I use a Super Pump, I use the Myofusion, I use the Precision Whey. Yeah, I like a lot of the Gaspari products. I've been using them for going on 12 years now. I started with the company doing some writing for them and some endorsements stuff back in 2000. Actually, it was like late 05, I want to say. Maybe early 06. It's been a long time. It's been well over 10 years, put it that way. For my regular supplements, I get a lot of my regular supplements from Perillo Performance out of Ohio, like the vitamins, the minerals, vitamin C, the joint formula, even primrose oil, vitamin E, things like that. I get a lot of those. And I also get more protein powders from him because I go through a lot of protein powder. And I only get a certain amount from Gaspari every month. And I have a couple shakes a day, 2 or 3. My wife has 2 shakes a day, so we burn through a lot of protein powder. Next one, what is your training split for arms? I mean, when do I train them? So this is what I'm doing now. You know, you're asking a guy with lagging arms for many years, but I'll tell you anyway. So right now what I do is, today is Thursday. Today I did arms. Today is my arm day, Thursday. Tomorrow I will do, Friday I do legs. I was doing a quad dominant day and a ham dominant day for almost 2 years. I just stopped doing that and just went back to doing legs all at once. My legs don't need to be, my quads don't need to be any better. My hams could always be better. So I do more hams than I do quads. But back to arms. So an arm day on Thursday, and Saturday will be chest with a little bit of biceps. I'll just do like one bicep exercise. Sunday is off. Monday will be shoulders with a little bit of triceps. Tuesday is back. Wednesday is off, and then we're back to arms again on Thursday. Are they getting a little better? A little bit? I don't know. I'm 48 years old. I'm not putting oil in them. I'm not going to give up. I still train them very hard, and I try new techniques, new exercises, deep tissue, whatever I can do. I'm not giving up on them. They're never going to be awesome. I know that. They're never going to be even really good. But if they can be a little better and match with, luckily, my legs are just genetically, they've always responded very, very well. I train them hard and they grow. I train arms very hard, harder than my legs, trust me. And they're just stubborn. But I'm not giving up on them. I'm not being defeatist about it. I keep training hard, keep resting, eating, and I believe that they will get better over time, even at my advanced age and almost 35 years of training. Final question from Michael Edwards. If you could win the Mr. Olympia or have a top-selling book, which would you choose? Well, how could I win the Mr. Olympia with my genetics? But okay, I'll just play it that way. Best-selling book. I would go to best-selling book. Yeah, absolutely. Just because I don't know. I love bodybuilding and I love the sport, and I respect all the champions and all the Mr. Olympia winners. But if I could have a best-selling book, to me that's more prestigious. Just me, because I'm a writer. I write obviously for a living for the magazine and for the website a little bit. But I've also got a couple books. I did Evil Times 10 that's available all over, anywhere you can download a book digitally. Evil Times 10 with an X, Evil X10. And a book called Real Bodybuilding that I self-published that's available on Amazon. But I would do the best-selling book. Yeah, I would. Again, I'm going to urge you guys to please follow me on Instagram at Ron Harris Muscle. Still don't have 10,000 followers, which is pathetic. I should have, at least 10. Every girl that puts a bikini picture up, she gets, 20, 30, 40,000 followers within a week. I want some followers. What the heck? Well, that's it for Ask Ron. I appreciate you guys sending in questions. Hope you enjoyed the answers, and we'll talk to you next time.